Okay, so welcome everybody. Good evening for people in India. Good morning for the people in the US. And if you are any other part of the world, whatever, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. So my name is Shrikant. I'm the host for this live talk. If you want to know more about me, you need to go to www.coachshrikant.com. So today I have a very special guest who is going to speak to us on one of the most important topics. I believe is uh, it's important for all of us, yeah, regardless of what position but we are in. Executive presence. My friend and fellow coach Kshitij Sharma. I met Kshitij about 7 years ago when both of us were going through this coach certification program, training program together. So Kshitij has been coaching people for more than 20 years now. He's an executive coach, primarily focuses on executive presence as a very special niche to coach people who are CXOs, country heads, senior directors, and senior VPs. In the last 20 plus years, he has coached lot many people and accumulated about some 3,000 plus hours of coaching experience. He holds a professional coach certification credential from the International Coach Federation. He also is a master practitioner and a trainer for neuro-linguistic programming. He has held senior L&D head roles, L&D's learning and development roles with HSBC, GE, and a few more companies. He's an avid reader. Rather than a reader, he's an avid listener of audiobooks, and he's a yoga practitioner. He also has been a contributing author for a book titled Leadership and Role Modeling. He's been in Bangalore for the last 15 years. He lives in Bangalore with his wife, Mona. And I'm going to hand it over to Kshitij. He is going to take us through this concept of executive presence. He would like all of you to have your video on, stay muted, because he doesn't want to talk to a black screen. So have your videos on, go muted, and this session is going to be completely interactive, and he will share whatever he has to share, and then of course he will ask you questions and all that. I'm going to leave it to him as to what he wants to do with this. Okay, with that, welcome, and all over to you.
Thank you, Shrikant. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this. I'm really excited to be a part of this gathering and share whatever I know. And let me just see if I can show my deck. Just give me a minute, please. Is it visible?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So greetings, everybody. So good to meet you over here at this platform, though I still see that I can't see you, and it will be great. Yeah, I can see a lot of people now. Thank you. Thank you, Lakshmi, Naveen, Saji, Hanumant, for switching on your videos. So executive presence, like Shrikant mentioned that I have been in the coaching space from last 20 years. And from last 10 years, I'm a professional coach. I've coached hundreds of leaders, various organizations across industries, various levels, primarily those leaders who are on a threshold of CXO positions and CXOs and country heads. What I realized as I was thinking one of these days that what has been the most fulfilling experience for me and what has been the most useful experience for my client. And I started doing that exercise. It was some 2 years back. And that's when I realized that executive presence is one of that area. When I work with my clients, I get maximum fulfillment, I get maximum happiness, and my clients get maximum results. And that's why I developed this as an area. So before we delve into it, about executive presence, I want to share with you something which is a very common appraisal time comments that we receive from our line managers. Things like you are a great asset to the organization, well respected for your functional expertise. However, something is lacking, which is preventing you from taking up more challenging roles in the organizations. And I can't put my finger on what exactly is missing, but I think you need to work on your executive presence. So that is one type of statement. Another is, you're very well liked by your team. However, I have seen you struggle to inspire or influence them to new ideas. I think you need to work on your executive presence. Then you're an outstanding subject matter expert. However, I see that you struggle to create good visibility for the great work that you are doing. I think you need to work on your executive presence. And you have so much of knowledge. However, you have not been able to project that confidence when you speak in a public platform or when you speak to external or senior stakeholders. I think you need to work on your executive presence. So if you say executive presence has become like a cliche, wherever there is something missing, line managers struggle to find, the exact words, and they say that, something is missing, and it is actually missing. And this is probably it is executive presence. But what I observed when I was listening to so many clients across industries for so many years, I saw that there were some common observations in their profile. One, they're all mid to senior level leaders. They were very well respected in the organization for their high technical competence. Initially, they had experienced rapid career growth, till the mid level or even to the senior level. But thereafter, they hit the ceiling. So not able to really grow beyond that. Similarly, not only for those people who are in the corporate field, even entrepreneurs. I have seen that entrepreneurs start up, they start up a company and they are very excited. And the first 1 year, they put a lot of effort, and then there is some growth, and then 2 years, and then they see some growth. And but after 3 years, they see that they are stuck. And some organizations either just die down after 3 years. And even if they survive for say 5 years, they are not really able to see that success which they had envisioned, despite having a great product, great team, great idea. Something like what Marshall Goldsmith says, what got you here won't get you there. So there are certain skills, there are certain qualities which have brought us here. But the same skills and same qualities, we are going to need much more than that to really go there. And that's something which I would like you to think about. There was this research done by Harvard University, Carnegie Foundation, and Stanford University several years back, and in which it was shared that 85% of the job success comes from having well-developed softer or the people skills, and only 15% of the job success comes from technical skills and knowledge, or the so-called hard skills. Very surprising, right? We all work so much, we have so much of qualifications, we have worked towards developing those hard skills. But the research says that it only helps up to a level. Thereafter, the softer dimension or the people skills are required. So my question to you is, what is executive presence? Is it soft skills? Is it people skills? What is executive presence in your experience of knowing this term? I'm sure in your organization, you would have heard it multiple times. Some of you would have attended programs on this. Some of you would have read books on this. I would like to hear, what is executive presence? What's your perspective of that? Anybody can unmute and say, otherwise you can put your comments either ways. I'll prefer if you can unmute and say.
So how you make yourself presence in various conversations that you have in the professional career?
Yes. Sorry, who said that? I was not able to.
Yeah, Kshitij is Murthy here. I think we just met around a year back in Bangalore.
Okay, great. Yes, Murthy. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So making your presence felt in conversations. Great. Naveen, I see your hand up.
Yes, sir. The ability to influence with whatever you have.
Great. Any other perspective? Yes, ability to influence.
Yeah, this is Uday. I think what I have realized, it's the ability to be recognized as the calming hand, even under crisis or under normal conditions, right? So people are able to look at you and they don't feel adrift.
Yes, yes. So that calming personality, this which kind of eases the entire environment or that aura.
Hi, this is Manoj here. I think it's also to do with the perception you create.
Yes, absolutely, Manoj. Very well said. Great, great.
Comments which you have written in the chat
Yeah.
as well.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm not able to see the chat.
Hi, this is Saji here. So I would say
Yes.
that the knowledge expertise that you have, the executives know about it, and in a way, I would say that you have created a branding for yourself. And
Mhm.
if they, let's say, based on your expertise, if they face a challenge or something, they would remember your name or recall your name very quickly.
Absolutely. What brand have you developed for yourself?
Kshitij, I'm also seeing some comments. I'll read that for you.
Yes,
So
please.
Lokesh says, how do you get across your ideas and make your presence felt?
Yeah.
And Om Prakash says, it's the confidence and how you make others feel mostly
Yes.
positive.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, great
Hi,
input.
if I could just add,
Yeah,
Yes,
Ananya.
Anika.
I feel if you make yourself heard and also empathetically listen to someone, I feel that makes you be that creates a presence about yourself.
Absolutely. Make yourself heard and hear others as well.
Kishore, did you say something?
It's probably to be able to do a cool eye review.
Mm-hmm. Kishore,
I-
cool eye
Am I
review.
audible?
Yeah, you're audible, yes.
Cool, yeah. As to be able to do a cool eye review of things. I mean, when things are really stressed up.
Okay, cool eye review of things. Okay.
Cool eye review. I mean, I'm not sure is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
used in English, because we use that in Japanese quite often. So,
Okay.
cool eye review. Yeah, just
Yes.
like that. Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, obviously,
ability to see a thing. Mhm.
yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Kishore.
Yeah, no. I have this habit of translating directly from Japanese because most of the time I use Japanese. So
Yeah, so understand.
anyway.
Now, what you're essentially saying is ability to really see from a different perspective when things are stressed out, having a calm perspective, having seen it more from a positive.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Great.
And probably
Yes,
also
Aman?
having
Yeah, please.
an enabler mindset, enable people around.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. Enable people, empower them, develop them.
Yeah, so Lakshmi says ability to take a driver's seat. Vinod says ability to influence, persuade, and inspire.
Wow, Shrikant, I'm loving this group. This is amazing. This is amazing. What great input that we have received from everybody. And thank you so much for your participation.
Kshitij, just lastly, how
Yes,
you
ma'am.
come across
Yeah.
in different cadres of people. You could be speaking to anybody who is junior to you, or you could
Yeah.
be speaking to a CEO or a VP, a superior to you as well. So how you come across. Also
How do you
makes
come
sense.
across? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like there is a saying that what people are talking about you when you are not in the room is the impact that you have created on others, how you come across to them. That's also a very significant part. So great inputs, everybody. So if you see here, executive presence is a missing link between merit and success. This is a definition given by Sylvia Ann Hermit. She's the author of a very well-known book called Executive Presence. And one second, I'm not able to see. Yeah. So, Shrikant, I just want to check when I am putting this entire screen, are you still able to see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay,
that.
great. Because now I'm able to see everybody. That's why I was just checking. So, great friends. So one is your competence, what you are good at, the so-called hard skills, which we have earned, developed over the years. And one is our ability to communicate that competence to the whole world. Now, a combination of that is executive presence.
Wow.
And sometimes that is the missing link between merit and success. That's what.
Kshitij, can you just repeat the last sentence? The
Yes.
explanation which you gave?
Yes. So one is, of course, your ability, your competence, how good you are in what you do, your technical hard skill, knowledge, work, whatever field you are in. And one is your ability to communicate that competence to the whole world. You know, both are important when we are trying to create an impact. And sometimes we feel that, you know, I'm very good in what I do. Why do I need to really convey? My work will speak for me. That's a mindset with a lot of my clients have. Yes, it is true, because you have, that is what has brought you here. You have got success based on that. But then is that sufficient? When you are working with global stakeholders, when you are working with people who you don't know about you. So the ability to communicate that competence is also equally important, and that has to be nurtured. So just trying to figure out where is this. Yeah. So like I mentioned, when you are, what people are talking about you when you are not in the room, that's also a part of executive presence. And this is something which is my definition, which I've kind of put it in one of my upcoming books on executive presence, which essentially means executive presence is the impact that we create on our ecosystem when we rediscover our greatness within. Now, if you see, there are two components in this. One is the impact that we create on our ecosystem, and one is the rediscovery part of what we are good at. And that leads me to share what are these elements of executive presence. So with the research which we and my co-author Vivek Sharma has done, we discovered that there are 6 broad elements which can be classified into 2 parts. One is extrinsic elements and one is intrinsic elements. Extrinsic elements are those which conveys how you display what comes across, and intrinsic elements is what you have, right? So elements like communication, charisma, and confidence, if you see, these 3 are the extrinsic elements, which is all about what you display outside. And what you require, what you possess, or what you can nurture is clarity, competence, and composure. So I'll talk about all of this in detail. But before that, let me share with you this very interesting 3x3 presence matrix. So if you see on the x-axis, it is the extrinsic elements, which is charisma, confidence, and communication. On y-axis, it's intrinsic elements, which is clarity, competence, and composure. So when some leader is high on clarity, high on competence, and high on composure, but low in charisma, low in confidence, low in communication, they have a mild presence. Can you think of some leader, well-known leader?
Manmohan Singh.
Yeah, with all due respect, I am a huge fan of him. But yes, that is a very good example. Somebody with a mild presence. On the other hand, there are leaders who have a lot of charisma, they have a lot of confidence, a lot of good communication skills. However, they lack clarity, they lack the basic competence, and they lack composure. We call that as loud presence. Ex-president of US, Donald Trump, is a good example of that. And there are leaders who have low clarity, low competence, low composure, low charisma, low confidence, low communication. We call that as low presence or no presence. But when we have a good combination of all these things, great clarity, great competence, great composure, a very charismatic personality, exhibiting confidence, and great in communication, that is executive presence, or a powerful executive presence that we are talking about, just for us to differentiate. So generally, when I take my clients through this 6 months long journey, we work on all these elements one by one, depending on where they are and where they want to reach, and what are the areas which they are good at, and what are the areas where they need to work on. So it will be practically very difficult for me to put together everything in this 40 minutes, but 40 minutes in the sense 20 minutes for your question and answer and 40 minutes for what I have to say. But what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to put together some 1 or 2 nuggets, very powerful nuggets from each of these elements, so that you can integrate it in your current work life and see if you can get benefited by it. And of course, I'll be happy to take questions towards the end, so that if you have any specific questions from this topic or beyond that, we can talk about it. So the first aspect is communication. So, the old perspective of an effective communication was sending off an idea from one person to another and having it arrived intact. Whatever I've said, you've understood, that is effective communication. However, over a period of time, the definition of effective communication itself is evolved. And it is all about you getting the desired response from the other person. Whatever message are you, somebody said influencing. Are you able to really get that response from the other person when you are communicating? I was working with a senior vice president finance of one of the India's largest IT firm, a multinational company. And this gentleman had 30 years of experience, was leading a team of 300 people, very, very good, technically very, very strong. He was really known across the industry, across his organization for his ability to communicate effectively, to know his subject matter expertise. His challenge was that whenever he was in the board with the MD and the chairman and the other CXOs, he had difficulty in getting their buy-in, especially in that 7 minutes or 8 minutes time which he had. So how to really speak? So, communication doesn't mean just fluency or articulation. I think all of us over here are pretty good in that already. What people sometimes miss is an ability to really influence others to your way of thinking. So, of course, we had a long conversation, which was spread, the whole coaching engagement was for around 6 months. And during the conversation, what he realized, I actually introduced him to a very beautiful concept, which I would like to introduce to you. It's called Outward Mindset. Outward Mindset is a book written by Arbinger Institute, a must read for anybody who's wanting to develop a powerful executive presence, especially in the communication space. So we say that what that book talks about, and which I discussed with this gentleman, was, there are two kinds of people in the world. One with the inward mindset and one with outward mindset. The inward mindset people are the ones, when they are speaking, they are talking about my challenges, my needs, my objectives. Whereas people with the outward mindset, when they are speaking, they talk about your needs, your challenges, your objectives. And when he incorporated that, just a slight change in his language, he was able to see the change. He was able to really overcome the bias that these guys had about him. And he was able to establish a chord, establish a connect. And of course, eventually right now, he's a global CFO of another large IT firm, multinational firm. So that is one nugget about communication I want to share. In case you have a question, my request is please take a note of it, and please do ask me once we are done with this, with our 40 minutes. The second very significant part, and right now, friends, we are talking about the extrinsic presence, which means those elements which are extrinsic elements, which we will display outside. So how you communicate is one thing. And what is charisma? It's a very, very powerful aspect. When we talk about charisma, people think that charisma is more about, how flamboyant are you, or how much you can really, how charming you are, or how well dressed you are. Of course, these are very, very important aspect of charisma. I would like you to highlight 4 different types of charisma. And for those of you who have read Charisma Myth, a book by Olivia Fox, she talks about 4 types of charisma. So it's not just flamboyance and, good dressing and good communication and the charming personality. We have 4 types of charisma. One is focus charisma. Focus charisma, when you are paying I think somebody mentioned, Anika mentioned, that is about paying full attention to the other person. When you are listening to them, they are the world to you. So Oprah is a good example. Amitabh Bachchan is a great example. These people, these leaders have focus charisma. Bill Clinton, when they are listening to somebody, they feel that they are the world. And then there is a vision charisma. Vision charisma is something where you are very passionate about an idea, And you not only go there, but you take everybody around you. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, great vision, charisma. They build teams, they take everybody in the direction of their vision. And then there is on the other hand is Dalai Lama, kindness, charisma, the warmth. That's also a very significant part. So, it's a myth that charisma is only all those things which you just mentioned. These are various aspects. Then there is authority charisma, the fourth one, authority charisma, where you exhibit that command, like Putin. Putin is a great example. Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi. These are the leaders who have that authority charisma. So 4 things: focus charisma, vision charisma, kindness charisma, authority charisma. Now, why do we need to know that? Do we need to really nurture all these? Well, it depends on the situation. What situation you are in, which charisma do you need? And, they say that the most flexible part of the machine is the one which runs the machine. Similarly, the most flexible part of the system is the leader who runs the system. So if we have the flexibility to really build these different muscles of our charismatic personality, these 4 aspects, that is something you can think of. And the third and a very significant part, and somebody also mentioned in the initial round, is the confidence. I think Om mentioned, is the confidence that you exhibit, the confidence that you possess, which is so important about, and confidence, where does it come from? Where does confidence come from? Confidence comes from 3 things. It comes from the competence. We are good in what we do. It comes from clarity. We are very clear. Where are we heading? How are we going to go there? What is our vision? And there is one more thing that I'm going to talk a little later, which is what I really want to nugget that I want to share with you. But before that, I want to give you an example of a lady who exhibits great confidence, and she almost personifies this. I was listening to an interview of Kiran Bedi, and at that point of time, she was saying that she was the DGP, IG in Delhi, and she was on her rounds, and she reached a place where there was a building was on fire, and there were 3-4 police guys who were standing right there, and the building was on fire. There were kids and women and people inside, and these police guys were just standing there. And she said that, "What's happening? What are you doing?" Said, "Yes, sir, ma'am, we are waiting for the fire brigade." Said, "Okay, why don't you go inside?" Said, "No, we are not equipped for that." She said, "Okay, are you equipped to, put this use hand pump?" Said, "What? Yeah, can you use the hand pump?" So she sat under the hand pump and she asked them to put water on her. And they did it, and she went inside. Following that, they also went inside. So it's the courage, it's the confidence that you exhibit, which kind of inspires people to really reach there. So what I really want to say, that I said that there are 3 things which are important. One is the competence that you have on yourself, the clarity that you have about your strengths, your innate vision. One thing which is very important is your physiology. So, there is a lot of research in this. If my physiology is like this, if I sit like this, and sometimes I will actually go into a state of depression because my physiology is like that. But if I am expanded, if I have something what Amy Cuddy calls as power pose, where I'm, how an Olympian does when they win the race, or what a Virat Kohli does when he hits a century. That's an expanded position. So what happens when we have and there's a lot of research in neuroscience which has happened, friends, that if we want to build consciously this confidence, the pathway is by consciously changing of physiology. So here is what I would like you to do, everybody, if you can, please look up, okay, to the ceiling, and now smile, okay? Look up and smile, and now try to think about something bad which has happened. But the only clause is that don't stop smiling. Don't stop smiling and don't put your foot, your head down, and try to think about something bad. All right, you can put it down. Were you able to?
No, I was not able to.
Yeah, it's not possible. Why? Because our physiology was not supporting this negative emotion. Now we are all working from home. Some of us are, most of us are working from home. You know, how our physiology is, you know, it matters a lot. How we change our body posture. That is a very fast way of moving into a confidence. So I'm conscious of time, and then I'll be open for questions. So these are the three nuggets from the extrinsic elements. Let's move to the intrinsic elements of executive presence. And the first one is my favorite. It's clarity. When we say clarity, clarity about what? You know, there are so many things which are required, but a leader, when the leader is clear about these things, there is a very different level of executive presence. Like Simon Sinek says, when they are clear about their why. What is their why? What is their purpose? What am I working for? That is one thing. They are clear about their strengths. What am I good at? What am I great at? And then if they are very clear about their why and their strengths, over a period of time, they stumble upon what is their innate talent or their innate element. You know, when you stumble upon that, when you are into that turf, then it doesn't matter where are you playing that game. Like for a Virat Kohli, whether he plays in a Melbourne or he plays in a Firozshah Kotla or a Chinnaswamy, doesn't matter. Because he has stumbled upon or he has discovered his innate element. So very, very important. If we have not yet asked this question, there are a lot of great ways. Of course, I take my clients through a very detailed journey. In fact, there was a lady, she came to me long back, almost 5 years back, with a very simple goal that Kshitij, she was an entrepreneur, had one of the very leading architects in South India. And she said that I'm very comfortable in having one-on-one conversation, but the moment I have to speak to multiple people, I'm not able to. So that was the goal, public speaking in front of a lot of people. We started working on that. And then second thing was how to work with alpha males, people who are very aggressive. You know, some of the clients are very demanding. So we started working on that. During the journey, we did a life purpose exercise. And she realized that though she's an architect, but her heart is into sustainability, doing something sustainable, and especially for women. So initially, when she discovered that she wants to be engaged in sustainable things, she came up with a lot of ideas. She changed, included sustainability in her architecture, you know, converted a lot of parks. She became a public figure, started working with politicians in making more sustainable ecospaces. And then she discovered that she wants to do that sustainable thing for women. And she set up a factory for women's menstrual cups, the reusable menstrual cup. And she became an evangelist on that. She started speaking. She never realized that when it so happened that she became a public speaker, she started talking to people in various corporates, 100 people, 500 people. Just an year back, she was approached by TEDx to come and talk on that. Now, how did that happen? You know, I could have, worked with her on some public speaking skills, which would have been an easier goal. But what really worked was when she discovered her why, she discovered her innate element and was able to really live that fulfilling life. So very, very important. Identify what is that thing which gives you a kick. What is that thing which where you get maximum compliments? What is that thing where you get maximum fulfillment? So where you get a kick, where you get a great excitement, where you get compliments, and where you get great fulfillment. You know, if you identify an answer to these three questions, that could be a good starting point to discover that innate element. Of course, the competence we talked about right at the beginning, that executive presence is not the competence that you have and the ability to communicate that competence to the whole world. Now, when we say competence, it's very important that we need to be a master of our trade. So it is not that we are very good in beating our trumpet, we are very good in stakeholder management, we are very good in building relationships, but of course we are not good in what we do. So we need to be a master of our trade, and master of our trade to a level where we have deep knowledge about what we do, and where we are able to bring some original value. It's not that we are able to do just normal things. We are able to contribute in an original value. So we need to also work on our competence as we want to work on, because remember, intrinsic element, what we possess, what we nurture, and extrinsic element is what gets displayed outside. And finally, the composure, very, very significant part of executive presence. And when we say composure, it's about, somebody mentioned, I think Kishore, if I'm not wrong, mentioned the cool, the cool eye. When there is a fierce situation, when a fiery situation, you are able to be cool. I've come across leaders who are absolutely cool-headed when there is a fire. And believe me, that's the gravitas. That's what people really look up in them. Dhoni is an example of that. The classic example is Captain Sully Sullenberg. This is a gentleman who actually landed US Airways flight on the Hudson River when it had hit by a bird. At that point of time, he just had that time to really be cool and land. Of course, this cannot happen in one day. This is an overnight sadhana. It has, or not overnight sadhana, over a period of time, one has to really work on this by identifying what are our saboteurs, so like identifying what are some challenges, what are our personality types, and of course, we work towards it. But I wanted to highlight that that is an area which is very, very significant about executive presence. So, confidence, communication, charisma, extrinsic elements, clarity, competence, composure, the intrinsic elements. That, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, is executive presence from my side. And I'm happy to answer any specific or any pertinent questions that you might have. Yes, Naveen.
I did my best to get this question right. So the question is, what would one do when the person in authority wouldn't change the impression that he has on me? I do everything right. Okay, and then he's hell bent to teach me a lesson, which I have zero clue about. So when I have my one-on-ones, I go prepared, very well prepared. I would spend at least a couple of weeks, write down, especially weekends, and then go with a good a plan. But he just hell bent to just give me only 2 minutes and then trying to teach me a lesson. So when I speak to people who are my stakeholders, they are very happy and they value me. But when I speak to my immediate superior, he just hell bent on teaching me a lesson. How would you change that person? Or any other help will be appreciated. Yeah,
sure.
Sorry to give you a very live example. Yeah, but I couldn't think of anything else. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely. I'm so grateful to you for sharing that, because I'm sure a lot of other people can relate with that as well. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, have you heard about this concept, Naveen, about the circle of influence? Have you heard about that?
Yes.
Right. So circle of influence primarily says that there are certain things which are in our circle of influence, and there are certain things which are outside our circle of influence. Right. So for example, let's say Corona. Right. So what is there in my circle of influence is I wear mask, I follow social distancing, I take all the norms, follow everything, take the vaccination, blah, blah, blah. Right. What is not in my circle of influence is how others are behaving. Now, what I can do is I can definitely expand my circle of influence. So if I want, if I really want that to happen, I can be a Corona warrior. I can be, or I can really start working with BBMP or any other organization, the local municipality or whatever, to create awareness about it. So essentially, there are two things: A, which you can control; B, you can't control. Now, when you can't control, there is no point in worrying about it. But having said that, Naveen, in this case, you can control. Even though you go well prepared, there are other stakeholders who are happy with you. This is the person who has a preconceived notion.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there is something also called mirror neurons. And in fact, Stephen Covey, who's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says, who you are is so loud that I'm not able to hear what you say. I repeat, who you are is so loud that I'm not able to hear what you say. So sometimes when we walk into a meeting room, we carry our presence along with us. And because we have this person who has been judgmental about us for so long, and somehow he or she reminds me of the same person so several years ago who used to be judgmental. So knowingly or unknowingly, we have certain feelings which we generate about it. And even if we don't know, that impacts the other person, and that further prompts the other person to really go into that. So the only thing which is in our control, coming back to the circle of influence, is seeing how are we feeling about him or her, and consciously changing ways to work on it. Of course, in a one-on-one conversation, I would like to deal with in depth, but I would like to recommend you a book called Positive Intelligence, which has an assessment, a free assessment. You take that assessment, you would get to know about it. What are those innate saboteurs actually which are there, which is actually leading me to be in that situation? And there is a way to work on that. Hope I was able to answer your question.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, Ramji, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, hi Kshitij, this was very insightful, right? One of the things which is in my mind related to confidence and competence, right, is imposter syndrome. So, and I have it, like I know my stuff, but still, like sometimes you doubt yourself, right? I mean, especially in presence of somebody who is kind of like they may not know anything, but they exude that confidence, and you take it for a doubt, and in some interactions that actually is not very beneficial to you. So how do you address that?
Yes, and that's a great question, Ramji, again. And I would like to connect it back with the physiology example that I gave. In fact, you can see a TED talk by Amy Cuddy. She's also the author of a book called Presence. It's a 20-minute TED talk where she talks about power presence. And the easiest way is to really bring that shift in your physiology. Have that posture of a warrior. Secondly, I'll give you an example. Long back, I used to be in a corporate organization. I was taking care of the learning and development, and there was a meeting going on with the CEO and the other business heads. I was coming out of a training session. I was 5 minutes late. I was highly apologetic about it, and I entered the room very like I opened the door. I'm really sorry. Nobody paid any attention. My boss just waved, so come and sit next to me. I said, okay. Now, nobody even commented on when I said sorry, because I was hardly audible, Exactly 15 minutes later, another person, my designation, my experience in the organization, rather more fresh, he just bangs open the room and says, sorry guys, my apologies, I'm late. I'm really sorry. And to my surprise, I would have felt irritated by this intrusion. The CEO said, hey, don't worry. She was an expat. She said, hey, don't worry, come. And this guy sat next to the CEO. I was like, what is that? So it was nothing else but an internal state. Sometimes if we can just increase our voice volume decibel by 2 or 3 decibels, you will see that you will exhibit that confidence, and you will start feeling that. So there is a saying, fake it till you make it. There are a lot of my clients who have exactly this challenge, and they started working on it. 2 things: A, changing the physiology; B, increasing the volume a little bit consciously. And especially, you don't have to like loudly say everything, but especially when you are initiating a conversation, make a conscious effort to increase the volume. That can be the first two starting points for you, Ramji. Of course, this is a long journey, but I'm sure if you can take this step, you can start seeing the change in the next 15, 20 days. In my opinion.
Fantastic.
I can relate to the example that you gave. So it is spot on.
Anaga, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yes, sure. First of all, thank you, Kshitij, for your time. It's a wonderful session. My question is related to communication. I want to know that there are certain situations wherein we genuinely do not have anything to contribute, and but is it sometimes it might be expected that you just make noise and talk something which doesn't make any sense. So do you think that is acceptable, or I choose most of the times to remain silent because I do not have anything to contribute? And so what is the middle way? Because sometimes I feel that, okay, I'm not noticed or I'm not heard because of that. So what is a recommended middle way for this?
It's a great question yet again, Anka. Sometimes we don't have anything to contribute because either we are not associated with that subject, or there is nothing fresh that we have to speak. Everything is already spoken about it. Right? These are the general reasons why we don't contribute, or we are feeling underconfident. Sometimes that can also happen. We don't feel that this is the right platform for us to talk about. So there's some fear as well, that how will I be perceived, stuff like that. So of course, there are multiple ways in which you can address this. I would share one nugget to begin with. And that is to see the 10% good. In anything, there is a 10% good. No matter what, it can be the craziest of the idea. If we can cultivate that habit of seeing 10% good, and just if there is no idea, just say that, you know what, I really liked the fact that we deliberated on this because this reasons. So I appreciate that. You won't believe, people love to be complimented. People love to be heard and acknowledged. It is a very, very powerful quality of a powerful executive presence, a leader who exhibits powerful executive presence. So when you see, just try and change your mind that what is that 10% good in this, and then make a comment about that. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
that is something. And in just another example which is coming to me is this is from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure it's a very famous book, and most of you would have read it. There was a very interesting incident where Dale goes to some royal highness, a lady, and one of his friends introduced him to her. And they were just talking about ice hockey, or there's some sport. And, he just picked up the conversation that, hey, you also play ice hockey. And then for next 2 hours, this lady was talking about just her experiences, and this guy was just listening. Oh, wow. After 2 hours, this lady came back to the friend and who introduced Dale to her. And she said that, you know what, your friend is such a great conversationalist. Last 2 hours, he's been like talking great things about something which I love. And he really looked at her because he had not even spoken. All he was doing was really listening very intently. But the other person felt that she was heard and there was a commonality. So why am I connecting the dot? It might look very different. When you appreciate and recognize 10% good in other, that's a way to contribute.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Manoj, just hold on. Anumant had a question. After that, I'll come to you. Anumant, you had a question to ask?
Hanuman.
Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you ask the question, Anumant?
मेरा नाम है एच अनिल. आई एम फ्रॉम स्पेशल ओलंपिक भारत पौंडीचेरी. क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर, अगर स्पेशल एथलीट ने +2 कंप्लीट कर लिया है, वो कॉलेज में जॉइनिंग होना जाता है, बट उसको बात करने में थोड़ा डर लगता है, कॉन्फिडेंटली बात नहीं करता है, तो ऐसा वाला स्टूडेंट को हमने कैसा हैंडल करना है, ये तो थोड़ा बताइए.
जी, सॉरी, मैं समझ नहीं पाया क्वेश्चन. आपने क्या बोला कि कोई कॉन्फिडेंटली नहीं बोल रहा है तो उसको कैसे हैंडल करना है, बट हु इज दैट पर्सन इन द सेंस somebody in your team?
मतलब
स्पेशल, हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ जी,
स्पेशल स्टूडेंट,
यस यस यस,
स्पेशल स्टूडेंट कॉन्फिडेंट बात नहीं करता है, उसको लिखने नहीं आता है, पढ़ता है थोड़ा थोड़ा पढ़ता है, तो उसके लिए हम क्या करना पड़ेगा और कैसे हैंडल करना है, उसको कॉन्फिडेंस हमने कॉलेज में कैसे लेके आना है, ये तो थोड़ा बताइए।
या सो तो मेरा स्पेशलाइजेशन नहीं है स्पेशल स्टूडेंट्स के साथ, बट मैं आपको एक स्टोरी शेयर करना चाहूंगा, just checking with everybody else. Can I respond to this in Hindi?
Yeah, please.
Is everybody else is okay with
I think it should be okay. Yeah.
Okay. So रामायण जो हमारा एक ग्रंथ है, उसमें एक स्टोरी है, और उस स्टोरी ये है कि जब सीता जी को ढूंढते ढूंढते द एंटायर जो वानर सेना है वो उनको ढूंढने जाए, तो रामेश्वरम आके पहुंचे, एंड वहां पर आके दे वर सरप्राइज टू सी द होल ओशन एंड कैसे उसको क्रॉस करें। सो उस समय जामवंत करके एक बेयर थे जो उनके आर्मी में थे, उन्होंने हनुमान को ये बताया कि यू नो व्हाई डोंट यू फ्लाई एंड गो, जाओ उड़ करके देखो। He said, fly? मैं कैसे फ्लाई कर सकता हूँ? So नहीं, you can fly. So he reminded him of his greatness, forgotten greatness. So Hector, be it special or not special, everybody has to be reminded of their greatness. If you are a teacher, you are working with them, remind them how good they are, what they are good at, rather than finding fault in what they are not good at.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Nice.
You know, Steffi Graf, we all know, great German tennis player in our times. You know, when she was around 11-year-old, there was a great player who came to see her. You know, they've heard a lot of good things. After seeing her for 10 minutes, you know, he called her coach and said, no, I don't think she will be it's like any other normal player. And he said, why? He said, because forehand is okay, but backhand, you're all familiar with backhand, right? Backhand, she doesn't even use backhand. How can she be a great player? So the coach said, well, yes, I agree. The backhand she doesn't use, but forehand, she is great. But there is one more thing which you didn't see. She's also great in running in the court. You know, if the ball comes there, she runs and makes it a forehand. So what the coach or the leader was focusing on was the strengths. Of course, she also built her backhand capability later on. She did build. But the focus of the leader was on strengths. So consciously build on that strengths. Make the other person identify that how good they are. Hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Manoj, can you ask the question? Saji, I'll come to you later, and I'll come to Lakshmi. I'll come after Saji. Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah, hi, Kshitij. So my question actually stems from the way you started introducing this entire session, right? So typically you have your early career, your mid career, and then you are sort of in your senior level, this thing, right? So there is definitely a learning curve based on your age and experience as well. People say that as you progress, sometimes your learning ability deteriorates, or probably you don't take that conscious efforts to start learning and unlearning. So my question, part one is, out of the 6 elements, are there anything which can be learnable at any given point of time? So that's part one. Part two is, I strongly believe in learning a skill and finally getting to the competency level of unconscious competence, right? Without your knowledge, you're doing it. So what are your tips and tricks in case somebody has to probably do it after his mid 40s, right? I mean, is there something which he has to consciously do to ensure that comes in his day-to-day life?
Yeah, great question, Manoj. So the simple answer to the first question is yes.
Okay.
It is possible, absolutely possible. And the second question, if somebody is in an advanced age, how feasible is it for them to quickly learn, especially if there is a blind spot? You know, what my experience have been, because I've worked with people across spectrums, people are right there. At the same time, people who are far away from those competencies. See, the journey, you know, definitely anybody can travel. They start from where they are and they reach where they want to be. One of the philosophies that I have is always start from where you are and not where you want to be. So know where you are. What is very, very significant is to have a growth mindset and an open attitude.
Okay.
No matter where you are in your competence level, no matter. But if you have the willingness, there was this lady, I was attending a conference the other day where there was a doctor who was talking, and he gave example of a lady who did a marathon at the age of 92. And you know what, when she started running for the first time, 89. When she was 89, that's when she started.
Right.
So if somebody can start a physical exercise activity and can build that muscle, rest all is all competencies. These are workable, certainly workable.
Good. Ajay, unmute yourself and ask the question. I have Lakshmi and then I have Vinod also and Kishore also. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Shikhar. Hi, Kshitij. My question is, let's say, you don't have a very audience often with the executives. Without having that frequent audience or having an opportunity to talk to them, what is it that I can do to create this executive presence? What can I do? What can I do consciously?
Hire a coach.
That's a short
And
one.
I am not joking. Even if you don't want to hire a professional coach, identifying a role model in the organization, start working, approach them, make them your mentor. So, you know, people want to contribute. Believe me, Saji, people want to contribute. That is one of the needs of the 6 needs, human needs, contribution. Reach out, proactively reach out to the senior leaders in your organization and say that I would like to be mentored by you.
Fantastic.
Definitely.
Nice. Yeah, Lakshmi, you had a question?
Yes, coach. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. My question is on charisma. And so the first question goes as, does one's character has to do anything with the charisma? You spoke about, the 4 branches of charisma. So personally, when it comes to my own views, I may say that, okay, I am good in, expressing my kindness, or I'm more of a focused type. But when it comes to authority, I may not be able to project it, properly. And how do I instill all these 4, branches of charisma in my daily, in my daily activities, basically to my own character or my lifestyle?
Sure, Lakshmi. So just to clarify, what you essentially mean by character is your personality, right?
Yes.
Your intrinsic nature. Like, for example, kindness comes naturally to you. However, authority doesn't come naturally to you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean by character?
Yeah, I mean, character basically the, the everyday behavior that I...
Behavior and the personality. Absolutely. Got it. I got you right. Yes. Yeah, so great point. Now, if you can identify, first of all, like we say that 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. And the first step is to know where you are. Where am I? So now we talked about these 4 aspects of charisma, and you said that, I'm very good in that, in my kindness, charisma. However, probably if your work doesn't really need kindness, charisma to that extent, vis-a-vis a authority charisma or a focus charisma, right? And that's where we really need to consciously start working on it. Identify that that has to be more to do with what your work is and why. So is it okay if I can ask some more questions?
Yes.
So when you say authority is something you would like to consciously develop, may I know how would that help you in your current profile?
Personally, I have this feeling like everyone is free to express their own views and opinions. So I don't really feel very comfortable, putting my authority in front of my subordinates also. So I like to listen to them But sometimes it so happens that I need to. But I can personally feel myself that I'm not really good in, like giving a command to a person, like, okay, make this happen by this, by this time, and I want it done, and I want to be on the table by this time. But I can, like convince them in a very soft, kind manner that, okay, let's make the things happen, making the environment a little bit, lighter. But I find difficult, like giving a command to someone like, I want it done by this time, or this is how it has to be done. So I mean,
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, great. Yes. So, going back to what we had discussed some time back, kindness, charisma is your natural talent. However, you feel that at times you need to be authoritative. My suggestion would be that you start from your strengths. Authority doesn't mean aggression. Authority doesn't mean that you start shouting on people. There are great examples in the history. Mahatma Gandhi is a classic example of somebody with great assertive communication, with a kind approach, but he was firm. So firmness is important. You can be polite and firm. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to use words which are negative. But if you can start being firm, so change your verbiage. So 3 things in which one can, start making steps towards authority. One is by changing your body posture, like I mentioned. Immediately it comes, change your body posture. The second is by changing your choice of words. And the third is by changing your tone. So if your tone is like, okay, it's okay, right? So it has a like dilly-dolly tone, like, where you are not sure. So bring a firmness in the tone. And that can be done consciously. 3 things. It's not very complicated. Physiology, the moment you change physiology, like we experienced when we were doing that exercise, we were not able to think anything bad. So change your physiology, bring a change in your tone, make it more firm but polite, and start using words which are more definitive in nature, more certain, more assuring. So if you can use these 3 things, and of course that can be the first step towards this.
Fantastic. Kishore, unmute yourself and ask a question. One more question after that we'll take, and maybe we'll close the session.
Yes. Yeah. Mine is a very, very simple one. Can I use these principles of executive presence? Anywhere in the world is very generalized. Say I'm mostly in Japan, and I work outside also. Suppose I go to India next year, and will be there for 2-3 years. Will I be able to use these there? And I'm a construction engineer, so I usually do mega projects.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Kishore. These elements are universal in nature. However, you also need to be cognizant of the culture. Like in Japan, there is a different culture, which is, very different from the culture that we have in India or the one we have in West. So if you are cognizant of that, and that can be done through our first C, communication, because if you have an outward mindset, you will be talking about their needs, their style, their challenges, their objectives. So automatically you will change your communication style, be more cognizant of that, and can accommodate and bring changes. But yeah, be very cognizant of the environment. Very, very important. This cannot be the way we deal with Americans, cannot be the way we deal with Asians. Because there is a lot of hardwiring in our brain of centuries, which you and I cannot change. We should not change. We just need to be flexible in aligned to them. And that's a part of executive presence also, by the way. Your ability to be flexible and change your communication style as per the other person is a very powerful attribute of executive presence.
Fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, Vinod, you can ask the last question and then we can close the session. Vinod, can you unmute yourself?
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks, Srikanth, and very wonderful and useful session. Just one question, like you mentioned about the work speaking for itself. In fact, for someone who it is deeply entrenched, that the firm belief that by itself, and
Not able to hear you. It's breaking, Vinod.
Yeah, your voice is breaking, Vinod.
Can you type the question in the chat?
That
No, Vinod, your voice is breaking. Can you put the question in the
Am I
text?
audible?
Yeah. Now you're okay.
It's breaking.
Okay, will do. I'll type it out.
Yeah, put it in the. Yeah. In the meanwhile, somebody had. I think Vinod only had this question. Can you explain clarity with more examples?
Yeah. So see, clarity it has at multiple levels, Vinod. However, I felt that for a powerful executive presence, there are three aspects which are very, very important. One is the clarity of your why. When we say why, that means what is your purpose? I was working with a very senior leader who's been there, done it. But when I asked him, what's your life purpose? He had no clue. I did my engineering, then I got this, then I got this, then I started chasing my dreams. But I really don't know why I exist. Why am I doing what am I doing? Now, when we are doing that, anyways, we are working at our 50% of our level because we are not really, exhibiting that presence that we have. We have not stumbled upon that innate thing. So those leaders, those people, if you would have seen on the other hand, there are some kids, who have found what their innate calling is and they are doing it. So my suggestion to such leaders is that you don't have to change your career in the midlife, but if you can identify what is that one or two things in your career which really excite you. That's why I gave you those three examples where you get maximum compliments, where you get maximum fulfillment, and where you feel excited about. It could be, for example, you are an engineer, but making a presentation to the stakeholder is a very exciting thing. Do that more. Make a conscious effort. And as you start doing that, eventually world will start noticing you. You will get the promotions, you will get the hike, and you will build your powerful executive presence.
Okay. So we know there's one more question which has put it in the type. I think this is a common question that I come across from many people that I end up coaching. Work speaking for itself instead of bragging about it. How to overcome this deep belief? This is, I think, pretty much there in everybody's mind. I'm anyway doing my work. Why do I have to blow my own trumpet? How do we respond to that?
Yes, so it's a great question. And as you rightly said, most of us have it. Let's first understand why we have it, because that would help us really address it. We have it because that's been hardwired in our brain since childhood. So most of us who carry such beliefs are the ones who have been told by our parents, or who have been asked not to talk about yourself, who have been taught to practice humility, focus on your work. That's been a part of our hardwiring. And there is nothing wrong in it.
Karam karo, phal ki chhinta mat karo.
Hanji, absolutely. But that was working for us till now. If it is working, if it is continuing to work with it, absolutely, don't fix what is not broken. But if it is not working, it's something which we need to really ask ourselves the question that I really need to communicate. And it is not bragging. It is not boasting. Don't say lie. Don't talk, something which is not there. Just convey what you have done. It is important. Everybody, even when a child is hungry, he or she cries, then only the mother gives the milk, right? You have to make a noise.
Right.
So it is important.
Fantastic. We are on top of the time. We are exceeded by like some 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Kshitij, for accepting to talk on this topic. This was a very important topic. Yeah, this is an important topic because a lot of coaches who I coach have this question. They don't ask in terms of executive presence. They normally ask, hey, what is creating visibility? I'm struggling. Why should I blow my trumpet and stuff like that? And I loved your model. Absolutely amazing model. It's super. If you don't mind, at least these two slides, the 6 elements of the executive presence and that 4 quadrants, only those 2 slides, if you can just share that as a PDF, I will circulate to the people who are in the call, and I think there are more than 40 people who registered. Some of them obviously couldn't turn up for whatever reason. I would like to share the recording and the slides with them. And with your contact details, in case anybody wants to be coached by you, they can reach out to you. And I'm sure.
Very happy to.
Yeah, they're going to find a lot of value. I loved it. I learned a lot of stuff. I really loved it.
Thank you, Srikanth. Thank you for this opportunity, and I love the energy in the room. Believe me, this is never. I've been very biased towards the virtual sessions, but I felt that if the virtual sessions are like that, then it is as good as the physical session.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Srijit sir. This is indeed a treasure. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.